The great celebration on Valmora lasted for days. Both Sorari and humans danced, sang, and shared stories in the streets of the capital city, Thalassen. The air was filled with hope, a hope that had been lost for many years. At the heart of the celebration were Queen Talera and Lieutenant Jason Ward, no longer just ruler and soldier, but husband and wife. Their marriage was a symbol, not just of peace, but of a new beginning. Jason stood on the palace balcony, watching the twin moons rise over the glowing city. His hand rested lightly on the balcony railing, but his thoughts were far away, thinking. "Too much," a voice asked. Jason turned to see Talera beside him. She smiled softly, her eyes reflecting the moons. "I guess I am," Jason said. "It feels strange to be here, to be this." Talera stepped closer. "You mean to be a royal?" Jason laughed. "That too, but mostly it's the weight of what we started. This piece, it's fragile." Talera nodded. "Fragile like life itself, but worth protecting." In the days that followed, Jason began his new role not just as the Queen's consort, but as a leader in the new Unity Council. This council was created to blend the best of human and Sorari culture, law, and technology. Jason's experience as a soldier gave him a clear view of what was needed: trust, honesty, and the courage to stand together even in hard times. At the first council meeting, tensions ran high. Many Sorari members were still unsure about working with humans. Some humans still felt like outsiders. Jason stood before the group. "We cannot build peace by remembering old wounds. We must look forward, together." His words quieted the room. Slowly, the council began to work, sharing ideas, solving problems, building bridges between the two peoples. One afternoon, Jason visited the Memorial Garden, a quiet place where names of those lost in the war were remembered. The garden was filled with silver trees and glowing flowers that changed color with the seasons. Talera met him there. She placed her hand over his. "I wanted to show you something," she said. She led him to a small crystal pool. Inside, shimmering lights showed images, moments from the war, acts of courage, and scenes of hope. Jason saw himself saving the Sorari children on Viralan 4. "You were always more than a soldier," Talera said. "You were a light in the darkness." Jason looked at her, feeling something deeper than duty. "Thank you," he said simply. But even in this time of hope, shadows still lingered. One evening, a message arrived for Jason. It was from Kale, his loyal friend and warrior. "Trouble near the border," the message said. "Some factions refuse peace. They gather weapons. We may face war again." Jason frowned. He knew peace was not guaranteed. Some would always resist change. He went to Talera. "We must prepare," he said. "Not for war, but to protect what we built." Talera agreed. "We will face whatever comes together." Weeks passed. Unity Council worked to strengthen defenses, improve communication, and share technology between humans and Sorari. Jason trained with both human and Sorari soldiers. He taught them to respect each other's ways and fight as one. One day, during a joint training exercise, Jason saw something that made him proud. Humans and Sorari moved in perfect harmony, covering each other's backs, learning from their differences. He smiled. This was what he had fought for at night. Jason and Talera often walked through the palace gardens, talking about their hopes and fears. "I never imagined I would find this," Jason said one evening. "Love and peace in the middle of a war." Talera squeezed his hand. "Neither did I, but now that we have it, we must protect it with all our strength." Jason looked at her. "With you, I believe we can." The story of Jason Ward and Queen Talera became legend. Two different worlds. Once enemies, joined by courage, trust, and a soldier's heart, they built a future where humans and Sorari stood as one. A future where peace was not just a word, but a living promise. The halls of the royal palace of Thalassen buzzed with excitement and tension after the failed assassination attempt. The news had spread like wildfire. Lord Creevil and his conspirators had been caught red-handed trying to poison the queen, and the human soldier, Jason Ward, For the first time in years, hope glowed brightly in the hearts of both Sorari and humans. But peace was still fragile. Jason stood in the palace courtyard, practicing his sword moves with Kale, the young Sorari warrior, who would become his close friend. Kale's blade was swift and elegant, but Jason's human style was rougher, more direct, and powerful. "You have learned well," Kale said with a smile. "You fight like a true Sorari warrior now." Jason wiped sweat from his brow. "I'm still just a soldier." Kale laughed. "You're more than that. You're the bond between our peoples." Jason nodded but felt the weight of the truth. The entire Sorari court was watching him carefully. The nobles who supported the queen now accepted him, but the others hid in shadows, waiting for another chance. Inside the palace, Queen Talira was preparing for the final step. The official declaration of peace between the Sorari Empire and the Human Alliance. The ceremony was to be held in the Great Hall, a vast chamber decorated with ancient tapestries and glowing crystals. Talira's advisors gathered around her. "Your Majesty," one said, "the threat is not over. We have reports of human rebels who want to break this peace. They may attack during the ceremony." Talira's eyes narrowed. "Then we must be ready." Jason joined the meeting. "We can set traps, use both Sorari and human forces to protect the hall." One advisor nodded. "We can create a shield dome around the Great Hall, but it will only last a short time." Jason smiled. "And we hold them off until reinforcements arrive." The day of the peace declaration came. Thousands gathered in the Great Hall, Sorari and human flags hung side by side. The atmosphere was hopeful, but tense. Jason and Talira stood together on the raised platform. The ceremony began with songs and speeches. The queen spoke of a new era of unity. Jason spoke too, his voice steady. "We fight not to destroy, but to protect. Today we choose peace." Together, applause filled the hall. But in the shadows, danger waited suddenly. Alarms blared. A group of armed rebels burst into the hall. Their faces were angry, eyes wild with hatred. "Traitors," one shouted. "You sell out your people for love and lies." They opened fire. The crowd screamed and ducked for cover. Jason drew his sword. Kale and the Queen's guards rushed too. "Defend the platform." The battle was fierce but quick. Jason fought with all his strength, protecting Talira as she moved to the shield controls. "Hold the line," Jason shouted to the guards. Kale faced off against the leader of the rebels, a fierce Sorari warrior named Varnock. Their blades clashed with sparks flying. Jason noticed a rebel trying to sneak behind the queen. Without thinking, he threw himself. In front of her, taking a blow in his side, pain burned through him. But he stood firm. Talira activated the shield dome just in time. The rebels were trapped inside the hall. Reinforcements arrived quickly, surrounding the attackers. Varnock growled and surrendered. The battle was over. Jason was helped to a chair. His wound was bleeding, but not deadly. Talira held his hand, her eyes filled with worry and something more. "You saved me again," she whispered. Jason smiled weakly.
I will. Wait around row wait wide when late wait we wait I wait we low why
In the days after, the peace declaration was signed and broadcast across the galaxy. Jason and Talira's bond was stronger than ever. They were no longer just soldier and queen. They were partners, leaders of a new future. But even as celebrations continued, Jason knew the path ahead would not be easy. There would always be those who hated peace, those who feared change. But for the first time, humanity and the Sorari stood together, and Jason was ready to face whatever came next side with the Queen. The palace of Thalassen glowed with light and song as preparations for the royal wedding began. Beautiful banners flew across the sky, showing the Queen's crest and a new symbol: two hands. One Sorari and one human joined in unity. But behind the light and music, dark whispers moved in secret. Inside a shadowed room beneath the palace, the three powerful Sorari nobles met in silence. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark, and their voices were low with hate. "This marriage must not happen," said Lord Creevil, his sharp armor clicking as he paced. "The Queen grows weak," said Lady Cinia, her long fingers folded together. "A union with a human is a shame to the Empire." "Peace is a lie," growled Commander Draxon. "We were winning. She gives away our victory for emotion." They formed a plan. They would kill the human, but not in public. Not during the ceremony. It had to be quiet. Blame would fall elsewhere. It had to look like betrayal from the humans that would end the peace above. Unaware of the danger, Jason Ward walked through the garden halls of the palace. It was early morning, and the twin suns had just risen. Silver flowers opened slowly, and birds with crystal wings sang from the trees. Jason wore simple training clothes. After the trials, he had become something more than a guest. Some Sorari now bowed to him. Some whispered behind his back. Others stared with curiosity. But Jason didn't care much about titles. He was still a soldier, and he trusted his instincts. And today those instincts were uneasy. He felt watched. Later that day, Jason trained with a group of Sorari warriors. Queen Talira had asked him to be ready for the ceremony, but also to train her royal guards in human tactics. He taught them how humans moved in teams, how they planned fast, and how they made decisions with emotion and instinct. Things Sorari found strange. One young Sorari warrior named Kale became friendly with Jason. Kale admired humans and asked many questions. "Do humans really bond for love?" he asked one. "Day sometimes," Jason said with a small smile. "Sometimes not. But when we do, we fight hard to protect it." Kale nodded. "I hope our people learn that from you." Jason hoped so too. That evening, Queen Talira invited Jason to a private dinner in the Sky Chamber, a glass room at the top of the palace. The view was stunning. All of Thalassen spread below them, shining under the stars. Talira wore a flowing dress of deep blue with her hair tied in silver threads. She looked both powerful and peaceful. "You look different tonight," Jason said. She raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" "Not like a queen," he said. "More like ... a person." Talira smiled slightly. "I'm glad you see me that way, because after the wedding, I won't be just a queen, I'll be your partner." Jason sat down. The table was full of alien fruits, breads, and glowing drinks. He tried a bite of something purple and sweet. Talira watched him. "You've changed since you arrived." Jason looked at her. Maybe I'm just remembering who I was before the war." There was a quiet moment between them. Then Talira leaned forward. "I have to tell you something." Jason waited. "There are voices in the court," she said. Whispers. Plots. "I believe someone will try to stop the wedding, and not with words." Jason's eyes narrowed. "You think someone will attack?" Lyra nodded. "Yes. I have guards watching the halls. But if they move quickly, we might be too late." Jason's old soldier instincts came back. "Then we prepare." The next day, Jason explored the lower palace secretly. He pretended to be inspecting the ceremony hall, but really was searching for signs of danger in one dark hallway. He heard a sound, a quiet whisper in the Sorari language. He followed it. Around a corner, he saw Lord Creevil speaking with two unknown figures. "The poison will be placed in his cup during the bonding ceremony," Creevil said. "No blood, no noise. The humans will be blamed for hiding the truth." Jason stepped back quickly, then turned and hurried away. Now he had proof. He rushed to Find Talira. They met in her private chamber, where golden lights danced along the walls. They planned to poison me, Jason said. During the ceremony, Talira's face darkened. So they are not just whispers anymore. They have moved to action, Jason added. I heard Crival. He wants to make it look like a trick from Earth. If I die during the Union, both sides will fall back into war. Talira stood and paced. We must stop them. Quietly, if we move too early, they'll hide. If we wait too long, Jason nodded. We let the ceremony happen, but we changed the game. That night, a new plan was made. Talira sent secret messages to her most loyal guards, ordering quiet changes to the food and drink. Jason would use a fake ceremonial cup made by Sorari craftsmen to look identical. The real one with the poison would be given to someone else. Meanwhile, Kale, the young warrior Jason had trained, was assigned to follow Lord Crivel without being seen as the day of the wedding neared. The palace grew bright with celebration and heavy with tension. Finally, the day arrived. The royal union ceremony was held in the Temple of Balance, a grand hall with floating glass orbs and a giant silver sun carved into the wall. Thousands of Sorari nobles gathered. Screens across the galaxy showed the event live. Millions of humans and Sorari watched. Jason stood in ceremonial armor. Beside Queen Talira, who wore a glowing crown of light, they held hands. A royal priest spoke the ancient words. 2 cups were brought forward, one for the queen and one for Jason. The cup was part of the final step in the bond. Jason took his cup calmly. He knew it was the fake. Lord Crivel watched from the front row, small smile on his face. The priest raised his hand. Drink, he said. Jason and Talira both raised their cups, but at the last second, Jason turned and handed his cup to Crivel. An old human custom, Jason said, to share with those who support the bond. Crivel froze. He had no choice. All eyes were watching. He drank. Seconds later, he began to cough, then choke. Gasps filled the hall. He fell to the ground. Talira stood tall. Guards seize him. He poisoned the bond. The crowd erupted into noise. Guards moved quickly, arresting Crivel. Gale stepped forward with a recording proof of the plot. The other traitors tried to run, but they were caught. The truth was clear. The ceremony continued, but now it was stronger than before. The people had seen betrayal, had also seen trust. Jason and Talira finished the ceremony with quiet strength, and they held hands again. It was not just for peace, it was real later, in the quiet of the garden. Jason sat with Talira beneath the silver trees. You saved the bond, she said. Jason smiled. You saved the galaxy. She touched his hand. You are more than just a soldier now, Jason. Looked at the stars, and you're more than a queen. They sat in silence. Not as strangers, but as partners. The Sorari ship landed slowly on the surface of their homeworld, Velmora. The landing platform shimmered with silver light, and thousands of Sorari stood in silence, their eyes glowing as they watched the arrival of their Queen Anne the human. Beside her, Lieutenant Jason Ward stood tall, though his heart beat fast. He had faced war and death, but this was different. This time, he was entering the home of a once enemy, as their queen's chosen. As the ship's door opened, Queen Talira stepped out first. She wore a long flowing robe of violet and silver, armor over her chest and arms. Her presence was strong and calm. Jason followed, dressed in new ceremonial clothing given by the Sorari. It was strange, made of soft fabric that shimmered slightly in the light. He felt out of place, but he didn't show it. The Sorari crowd made no sound. Then, trumpet-like sound echoed from the palace above. Slowly the people bowed. Jason looked around surprised. They bowed a peace, Queen Talira whispered. Now to you. Inside the royal palace of Thalassen, everything was different from anything Jason had known. The walls were curved like waves, made of glowing crystal and floating panels of information. The air smelled of sweet spices and clean, Wind Talira guided him through the halls. "This will be your home now, at least until the ceremony." Jason nodded. "And after the ceremony?" The queen gave a soft smile. "That depends. The union may be political now, but its path will be ours to decide." Jason remained quiet. Wasn't sure what he wanted. He'd agreed to this for peace, not for love or power. That night, Jason was shown to his private chamber. It was large but quiet, filled with unfamiliar machines and floating lamps. A small orb floated beside him and translated any Sorari writing or speech. Everything felt strange. He sat by the large window, staring at the glowing Sorari city outside. Flying ships moved like insects across the sky. The twin moons rose slowly. There was a soft knock. It was a young Sorari attendant. "Sir Jason, Her Majesty requests your presence in the moon garden." Jason followed the servant through long halls and open gardens filled with tall silver trees and floating lights. He found Queen Talira sitting alone near a glowing pool of water. Her armor was gone. She wore a soft robe and looked less like a ruler and more like a woman. "You wanted to speak with me?" Jason asked. "Yes," she said gently. "There is something you must understand before the ceremony." She looked at the pool. Reflection rippled. "Not all in my court want peace. Some believe we are surrendering. They think I've become weak because I've chosen a human." Jason frowned. "Then why risk everything?" Talira turned to him. "Because I've seen what hate does. It burns both sides. I became queen because my mother was killed in this war. I wanted revenge, but you showed me something else." Jason didn't know what to say. Sat beside her. "You're brave," Talira said, "but not because you fight. You're brave because you save him when it's easier to kill." Jason shrugged. "War teaches you the cost of life." Talira looked at him deeply. "I want you to survive this court, okay, but to do that, you must be tested, as all royal consorts are." Jason raised an eyebrow. "What kind of test?" The next morning, a royal announcement was made. Lieutenant Jason Ward would undergo the trial of Union and Ancient Sorari ceremony to test the worth of anyone chosen to bond with royalty. It involved 3 challenges, one of strength, one of wisdom, and one of spirit. Many nobles protested, saying a human could never pass. Others hoped he would fail, so the marriage would be canceled. Jason accepted without complaint. "I've passed harder tests," he muttered under his breath. The first trial. Strength. Jason stood in a great arena beneath the twin moons. Watched from above, he faced 3 Sorari warriors, each larger and faster than any human. He wasn't expected to win, just had to survive without surrendering. The bell rang. Jason dodged the first charge, rolled behind the second, and used their speed against them. He couldn't overpower them, but he was fast and clever. He remembered his military training, stayed light on his feet, and used the environment's slippery ground, loose rocks, and timing. After several long minutes, all 3 Sorari lay on the ground, breathing hard. Jason stood in the center, bruised but unbroken. The crowd was silent, then slowly began to cheer. He had passed the first test. The second trial. Wisdom. Jason was placed in a room with strange puzzles, sorry logic cubes, translation challenges, and ethical questions about law and loyalty. He had to solve them in under 1 hour. Jason struggled with the language barrier, but used the orb translator. He didn't overthink, gave honest answers, and trusted his instincts. One question asked, "Would you break the law to save an innocent life?" Jason answered, "Yes. The law exists to protect life, not to become more important than it." The judges watched him carefully. His answers were different from most Sorari, but surprisingly human logic won respect. The second trial was complete. The third trial, Spirit. This test was private. Jason was taken to a quiet chamber where he had to face a memory from his past. The machine connected to his mind and showed him his worst moment. He saw his old battlefield on Ares 9, where he had failed to save his friend, Corporal Lee. The memory returned with full pain. The test was to see if he would break, if guilt would consume him. Jason did not run. He stared at the memory and whispered, "I'm sorry." I still carry you. The chamber went silent. He passed the final test. That night, Queen Talera met him again in the garden. You passed, she said. Even the nobles who hate you now must accept it. Jason looked tired but calm. So now the wedding happens. Talera nodded slowly. Yes, in 5 days. Unless you wish to walk away? Jason shook his head. I came this far. I won't leave now. She looked at him. Do you believe in what we're doing? Jason looked at the stars above. I believe it's better than war, Talera gave. A small, real smile. Then we begin a new future together. But far away, deep in the palace shadows. Others were not smiling. 3 nobles met in secret. The human passed the trials. One whispered. He must be removed, said another. If the queen binds herself to him, the old ways are lost. They began to plan not peace, but murder. The sky above Virulon 4 was full of fire and smoke. Giant warships floated like broken bones in the sky, and the ground was covered in the remains of machines and soldiers from both sides. After years of war, this was the final battlefield. Lieutenant Jason Ward stood among the ruins, his uniform torn, his weapon low, and his eyes scanning the wreckage. He wasn't a general or a famous hero, just a young human soldier who had survived too many battles. But today, he had done something that no one expected. He had saved a group of Sorari civilians Illyrians with silver skin, tall frames, and glowing eyes trapped under the wreckage of a collapsed building. Most human soldiers wouldn't risk their lives to help Sorari, especially not after what the war had done. But Jason had ignored the orders to stay back and had pulled them out one by one. The Sorari children had cried in his arms. One even called him protector. Jason didn't speak their language, but he smiled and nodded. Now, as the smoke cleared, silence fell on the field. A call had come from high command. The Sorari Empire had sent a request for a peace meeting. Jason was told to report to the nearest command center immediately. The human command base was inside an old bunker beneath the ground. The air was tense. Generals, advisors, and translators stood in front of giant screens. On the main screen appeared a Sorari diplomat with sharp silver armor and a thin voice. The queen herself will come, the alien said. She demands to speak directly. Gasps filled the room. The queen of the Sorari, Talera, was a living legend. She hadn't left her planet in 50 years. The humans accepted. Hours later, shining alien shuttle landed on the scorched land between both armies. Out stepped Queen Toleratl, graceful, wearing robes of deep violet and armor woven with light. Her eyes, glowing like stars, looked around with calm and power. Everyone in the room stood silent. Then she spoke in fluent human tongue. We are ready for peace, she said. But there is one condition. She pointed across the room. Him, she said, her voice strong. Lieutenant Jason Ward. Jason blinked. Every head turned toward him. He stepped forward slowly, confused. Me, yes, Queen Talera said. You saved my people without knowing their names. You chose compassion over hate. And years ago, you saved me, though you didn't know it. Jason looked at her, stunned. He had no idea what she was talking about. The queen continued. If peace is to begin, it must begin with trust. I offer marriage, a union between our peoples. You, Jason Ward, will be my chosen. The room exploded into shouts and arguments. You can't be serious, one general said. He's just a soldier. This is insane. But the queen stood firm. This is not a joke. This is our way. Marriage will seal the bond stronger than any paper treaty. I will accept no other offer. Was speechless. Later, Jason sat alone in a quiet room. Outside, leaders argued and planned. Peace between two species now depended on him, a man who had grown up in a farming colony, joined the army at 17 and barely survived this war. A knock came at the door. It was Ambassador Reyna, one of Earth's top diplomats. We won't force you, she said softly. But if you refuse, this war may continue. Jason looked up. Why me? Reyna smiled faintly. Maybe because you're different. You see people, not enemies, he sighed. I didn't save those civilians for politics. I know. That's why she chose you. That night, the stars above Virulent foreshone for the first time in months. The smoke had cleared and both armies had pulled back. Jason stood outside the camp thinking. He remembered battles, screams, and friends he had lost. He remembered the look on the children's faces when he pulled them out of the rubble. He didn't know this. He didn't understand her customs, but maybe peace was worth the risk. The next morning he gave his answer. I will do it, Jason said. For peace. 3 days later, a formal announcement was made across both empires. Queen Talira of the Sorari Empire and Lieutenant Jason Ward of the Human Alliance would be joined in union. The reaction was mixed. Many Sorari called it madness. Many humans called it dangerous, but others, on both sides, called it hope. Jason was taken aboard a Sorari diplomatic ship heading toward their homeworld. The ship was full of light, crystal walls, and strange technology he didn't understand. He was given new clothes, part armor, part ceremonial robe, and told to prepare for his arrival in the capital city of Taliesin Queen. Talira met him again on the ship. This time, they were alone. You do not have to love me, she said calmly, but you must be honest. Jason nodded. And you? Why me, really? The Queen looked out the window. 5 years ago, on a mission near the Red Nebula, my shuttle was attacked. I was not yet Queen. A human rescue team was sent to help stranded ships. You pulled me out from the wreckage. You didn't know who I was. Jason frowned, remembering a mission long ago: smoke, fire, and a wounded alien woman he helped into a med pod. That was you? Yes, she said. I never forgot, and now I see you again, not as a warrior, but as a bridge. Jason didn't know what to say, but something inside him, something quiet and steady, told him he was meant to be here. As the ship approached the Sorari homeworld, Jason saw cities of floating towers, rivers of light, and skies full of color. It was beautiful and nothing like Earth, and waiting in the royal hall were thousands of Sorari. Watching their queen return with a human by her side, Jason stood tall. He was just a soldier. But now, he was also a symbol of peace, and maybe something more.